I've spent an embarrassingly long time treating lighting as the bit of filmmaking that I respect, but from a distance. Because I know it's important, and I know it's where the real craft lives, and I know that the fastest way to make an image look expensive is to stop pretending the camera is doing all the work. Yet, if I'm being candid, I've often approached lighting with the same emotional posture some people reserve for tax returns. Vague dread, and a touch of avoidance. Also a quiet hope that I can stay in my lane, shoot nice frames, and let the world's more committed gaffers handle the rest. Because lighting, unlike cameras, doesn't reward casual half knowledge. It sort of punishes it until you either decide to learn properly, or you decide to keep everything safe, flat, broadly acceptable, which is a perfectly workable strategy. Yet it isn't a particularly ambitious one. So when Amaran announced these new Ace era fixtures, the ones that are small enough to feel almost pocketable, yet serious enough to accept proper Bowens modifiers and play nicely with modern control ecosystems, I felt that familiar mix of skepticism and curiosity, because part of me assumes that anything positioned in this competitive entry-level market is going to be either underpowered, overcomplicated, or so tied to a proprietary system that you end up paying for convenience with flexibility. And then I saw the Ray 60 and Ray 120 in the flesh, and I had this slightly inconvenient thought: what if the reason I've been dismissive about lighting isn't that lighting is hard, but just that my current relationship with lighting is hard? Because my setup is a patchwork of unrelated bits, and every time I want to experiment, I have to wade through a whole bunch of friction before I get to the fun part. So this video is, in a way, me finally admitting that the next step in my own growth is to stop treating lighting as optional and start treating it as a primary creative control. And if these little Ace generation Amaran fixtures can reduce the friction enough that I actually use them more and learn faster, then that is a much bigger upgrade than most new camera bodies or lenses could ever be. Now, before we get into any of that, I have one quick bit of housekeeping. I want to say a quick thank you, because the response to the Nikon ZR Girlfriend Reviews episode was really great, and the comments were both hilarious and a little worryingly very decisive in their assessment that Meg is, quite clearly, the superior host of Western approaches. Which, to be fair, I always knew was likely to be the case. It's just I hadn't fully appreciated how savage the adoration would be, how quickly it would turn into what could be construed as a coordinated campaign to replace me.
Take them away, toys!
So I'm really glad it found a home. I'm glad you enjoyed it, and I'm hopeful that Meg will agree to do a few more of those, because they don't really make sense as the default format for most of what we do here. As a supplement around bigger camera releases, bigger purchases, bigger moments in the schedule, it might make for a lovely, often humbling, recurring side thread. Part of what has motivated me to look more seriously at lighting is off the back of that recent video about the Xeon X60, which is a genuinely impressive compact fixture, and alongside a few changes I've made in the studio recently, it's made me realise that a major next step in my own development is becoming braver and more experimental with lighting. Because lighting is one of those areas where you can pretty much get away with being minimally competent, almost indefinitely, if you deliberately insulate yourself from it. But that leaves a lot of expressive control and potential on the table. For me, as someone on a bit of a YouTube side quest, the best place for me to start experimenting with lighting starts in the home studio/garage. And when I look at my current setup, though it's functional, serviceable, and gets the job done, it's also a bit of a parts bin special. It's a selection of fixtures that have arrived in my life at different times for different reasons. An old Godox SL60 as key, an Amaran 60X doing its job as spot, and like I said, the Xeon X60, which has been consigned to a hair light. There's absolutely nothing wrong with using a smorgasbord of fixtures, but it's definitely a bit clunky from a workflow point of view, and I've found for me that clunky is the enemy of productivity. Once you've tasted remote control of lighting, even in a home studio, it's hard to go back. It's a much more civilized way to change levels, adjust color temperatures, and nudge little color shifts without walking back and forth to the stand like you're doing laps for a charity. And it frees you up to monitor those changes in real time. The big shortcomings with my current situation is that none of the lights I've got live in the same ecosystem. The Godox, as far as I can tell, doesn't have app control at all, and also no color temperature control. The Amaran can be controlled via Sidus Link, and the Xeon has its own app entirely. So these three fixtures don't talk to each other at all. Now, that's not the end of the world. This is a studio, so in theory I could set everything once and leave it. But in practice, I'm always tweaking things a little bit, always changing, always trying slightly different looks, and it would be genuinely sweet to have a studio lighting controlled all in one place, like a bit of a cockpit rather than a scattering of unrelated systems that each demand their own focused attention. So with that in mind, I picked up a couple of new fixtures from Amaran, the Ray 60C and the Ray 120C, to see whether consolidating around one ecosystem reduces friction enough that I actually light with more intention, more consistency, and a bit more curiosity. There's a slightly annoying truth about lighting that doesn't show up on spec sheets because it isn't really about output. color science, or how many lux you can squeeze out of a tiny COB at 1 meter. I find it's more about friction. And I talk about friction quite a lot, but in terms of lighting, the moment you own more than one light, lighting stops being a product and becomes a system. And if that system is made by 5 different manufacturers who all think they invented Bluetooth, you end up spending your creative energy on menus, pairing, power bricks, and apps, rather than on shaping light. And the funny thing is, one of the things that the Xeon X60 really did shine a light on, pun intended, is that having a whole range of lights from a whole range of manufacturers is a bit of a pain in the ass, because everything is just slightly incompatible in small ways that matter when you're trying to move quickly or refine elegantly. So as ever, today isn't going to be a laboratory exercise, it's going to be more of a practical question. Do these Amaran Rays reduce friction enough that I actually use my lights more, tweak more confidently, and start moving the studio towards a cohesive ecosystem? At a glance, the Ray 60C and Ray 120C are compact, Bowens mount, full colour fixtures designed for the kind of work most of us actually do. Interiors, small interviews, home studios, product shots, quick pickups, and those slightly improvised setups where you just need a light that behaves. They're the sort of lights that make you do a double take, because they look like someone shrank a proper Bowens mount fixture until it felt almost pocketable, and then decided to cram in full colour control as well. Now, I'm deliberately not going to do the read the brochure thing, partly because you can find that information anywhere, yet mostly because I don't think that the brochure tells you what you want to know. Also, I have not read the brochure. What you want to know is, do they mount well, do they power sensibly, do they adjust quickly, do they play nicely with the rest of your kit, and do they make you more likely to experiment? The first thing I noticed, genuinely, the first thing, is that these lights feel like they were designed around the moment you walk up to a stand and you need to change something right now. Because you can have the best light engine in the world and still end up hating the fixtures if every adjustment feels like you're paying an attention tax. On the Ray 60C and 120C, the little scroll wheel on the top corner is the star of the show, not because it's flashy, but because it behaves in a way I've genuinely never used before. When the light is powered down, it's just a free spinning wheel with no particular character. Yet the second the light is on, it feels as though there's some kind of electromagnetic braking or resistance happening behind the scenes. A little bit like the triggers on a PS4 controller. Because the wheel starts giving you different types of feedback depending on what you're adjusting. So for certain parameters, you get these fine little clicks, tiny, precise steps that make you feel as though you're placing the value rather than hunting for it. Then for other parameters, you'll get a coarser, more assertive cadence, like a bigger step size that invites you to move faster without overshooting. And then in other moments, it becomes smooth again, almost clickless, as if the little light is telling you that precision isn't the point here, speed is. The closest analogy I can come up with is that it feels a bit like Morse code under your fingers. You've got dots, you've got dashes, you've got this subtle shift in rhythm that changes the way you move, and because that rhythm is coming back at you through your fingertips in a way that's quite haptic, you stop staring at the screen quite so intensely, which is exactly what you want in a studio where you're actually trying to watch the subject rather than the menu. Then there's the strange, most delightful part of it. If you give it a proper spin, it will continue spinning as if it has perpetual momentum, meaning you can fling your way through values, let it run, and then catch it again when you're close. And that kind of physicality, this sense that the control has weight, intent, and behavior, makes the whole experience feel a lot less like scrolling through a menu and more like operating a tool. I realise this all sounds a bit of an oddly poetic and in-depth way to describe a knob, yet it matters, because a satisfying interface makes you care and it makes you tweak more, refine more, and stop settling for close enough. Power is where these lights reveal their philosophy. On the one hand, there's the modern, sensible story. You can run them from mains in the studio, and you can also run them from USB-C power delivery when you're moving around, which is such a relief compared to the old world of proprietary plates, random cables, and the uneasy feeling that you're just one dodgy connector away from total darkness. On the other hand, there's a subtle nudge in the ecosystem direction. Amaran clearly wants to steer users towards a clean, integrated approach, and the way the mount is designed makes it feel like they're clearly pushing people towards their own battery handle solutions, rather than a fully agnostic standard V-mount solution. The workaround is pretty straightforward though, DTAP to USB-C PD, and any dumb V-mount holder will do. You can even use tape in a pinch, don't ask me how I know that. These lights do have a bit of a glaring real-world annoyance that you only discover when you go and actually try and use the thing. If you mount the light on the handle bracket in the default configuration, attach a modifier, and then try to tilt the fixture down to a proper interview key angle, you can run into a physical limitation where the bracket arrangement gets in the way of tilt range. The fix, at least with certain modifiers, is simple, but it's a bit inelegant. You unscrew the handle mount assembly and reverse it so that the light can tilt down to a more useful angle without fouling. It's not a catastrophic design error by any means, it's the kind of thing that will annoy you once and then you fix it and then you forget about it. However, it is worth knowing because the entire point of these lights is to reduce friction, and this one small moment, you do feel a bit of that old friction returning. Alright, this is the bit I care about the most, because this is where all my talk about consolidation I get to put into practice. My current key light, recently, has been an old Godox SL60, perfectly functional, perfectly serviceable, a light that has earned its keep just through its sheer reliability. Yet the moment you place that light into a mixed kit, it becomes one more island, one more control scheme, one more how do I adjust this today, one more set of small compromises that you don't notice until you try and move things around quickly. So I'm going to swap it out right now, halfway through the episode, because I want you to see the transition in real time, and I want to describe what changes when a light becomes part of an ecosystem rather than just a standalone object. If you're still watching this video and enjoying it, please hit like, leave a comment, subscribe if you haven't already, and if you can be persuaded to, do the whole hype ritual. It genuinely helps the channel more than you might imagine. Then, if you want to see how I'm actually deploying these lights in real setups, including the slightly scrappy mounting choices that would never make it into a polished edit, I post that sort of thing over on Instagram where I'm @JackFilmed. So if you'd like to follow along there, the link's in the description. Right, back to it. And one small side note, since lighting is nothing without control, I've ordered the Amaran Mini modifier, the Fresnel, and barn doors because I want to test a couple of very different looks, from soft, flattering key lights to something a bit punchier and more controlled. But they're currently back-ordered in the UK, so I'm not expecting them to land until late January. So today's video is more focused on the lights themselves and the workflow side of the ecosystem. This is the point where I want to zoom out because it's easy to accidentally turn a lighting video into a consumer exercise. One light versus another, numbers versus numbers, the implied question as to whether or not you should buy it, when what's actually happening for most working shooters is a gradual negotiation between simplicity and capability. When a video maker first starts buying lights, you kind of buy them a bit like gadgets, because each one of them is its own little world or ecosystem. Once you've been doing that for a while, you realize that the value isn't only inside the fixture, the value is inside the system that you've built, because your brain is part of that rig. And if you can cut down the number of different ways you have to think, pair, power, and control the same basic tool, you suddenly become faster, calmer, and more consistent with your output. That's why these Rays interest me. It's not because they magically replace every light I already own, but because they fit with my other Amaran fixtures and aperture fixtures too, and they make my studio setup feel like the start of a much more coherent approach to lighting. One app, one logic, one set of behaviors, where the act of using the lights becomes smooth enough that I've no excuse to carry on avoiding experimentation. If you're lighting big exteriors in full sun, these are obviously not the right tool for that job. If you're building large sets with multiple fixtures, serious rigging, proper distribution, this is not likely to replace any of that. These are for the person who shoots in real rooms, often alone, often quickly, who want a light that can be a key, a fill, a background splash, a practical match, a quick product highlight, a travel companion, then can be controlled without having to turn your phone into an app switching nightmare. For that person, the Ray 60 and 120C really make sense because they're small, modern, flexible, and simple. And that's why this key light swap matters to me. I'm not just changing a fixture, I'm shifting my whole studio baseline towards a system that's much easier to live with. My verdict, at least at this early stage, is that these are the kind of lights that make you want to tidy your whole lighting life because they reveal what a cohesive ecosystem feels like when you actually get a chance to use it. They aren't perfect, they definitely have a couple of quirks, yet the overarching experience, in spite of that, the interface, the compactness, the speed, and the sense that these were designed to be used rather than just compared by reviewers, makes me think that these could be the start of me consolidating, which is the main thing I want from lighting going into the new year. Fewer isolated islands, fewer disparate apps, fewer compromises, more of that simple feeling where you walk into a room, set up your levels, and shoot. If you've got questions about how I'm powering these on USB-C PD, what sort of modifiers make the most sense with fixtures this small, or how you'd personally approach consolidation versus mixing brands, drop it in the comments, because that's where the practical conversation that actually helps people takes place. Like I said in the middle, if this was at all useful and you're still watching this, more importantly, please like the video, subscribe. I'm Jack, wherever this gloriously lit thing is I'm calling Western Approaches. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.